All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. Coffee and questions. It's in the afternoon, so we're a little bit too late for coffee. Whatever you want to drink, water or whatever. We were sitting around talking today. I had a friend, he went out and he got a used Mig welder. It's made by Lincoln, and he came back and he goes, you know what? He goes, I get the idea on how to MIG weld, but, can you give me some tips on things that I should do in preparation for welding? And I said, well, I can give you some real simple tips. And I go, that'll help you a great deal. You just got to follow them, I think, every time, you go out to MIG weld. Every time I go out to MIG weld, there's a few things that I do, so I'm going to share them with you. Now, I'm going to pan around. I'm going to show you my MIG welder, and then we're going to hit the tips on what I think. If you do these things, your welding is going to come out so much better than if you ignored them or you didn't do them. Because a lot of people will just go out, fire their MIG welder up, and start welding. You could probably get by with it, but if you really want to improve your skill at doing it and you want to improve the way your welds look, hang in there with me. They're basic tips. You might already know these things. Maybe I'm just bringing them to the surface in your mind. Which is okay. Then you'll remember to do them. I try to go through the same routine. Okay, let's get right after it. No long intros. I want to show you my MIG welder. Let me pan around. Okay, now this is my MIG welder right here. It's a Miller-Matic 211 auto set. Now, all MIG welders and the tips I'm going to show you, they're going to be the same. Nothing is specific to this particular machine. So let's go over and let's take a close look, and I'll give you a couple of tips. Now, this is my grounding clamp. I got it out at Harbor Freight. I did a whole video on this thing. And so one of the things that you want to do when you're getting ready to weld is make sure that the grounding clamp is secured. And a lot of times people forget, but what helps you a little bit is make sure the grounding is on top down, not from the underneath where you're coming up through a large piece of steel or something. A little bit better welding. You can try it. It's just one little tip, but I don't have a piece of work here to show you, but this is a thin table. I don't worry about it so much, but I always put it with the grounding going down. It got better conductivity, if you do it that way. Okay, so that's this little tip. All right, I'm going to open this up, which is the way most MIG welders are with a side panel. Let me prop this up, give me a second, and then we're going to come in real close, and I'm going to talk about a couple other things. All right, so now let's take a look at the inside of this for a minute. You have a roller down here, and I'm sure you got one on yours if you have a MIG machine. Now, it's got grooves. Mine has got 2 grooves on here, and I can feel them, and I'll see if I can get a close-up in a minute. The 2 grooves are meant if you're using different gauged wire. So, like on this right now, I'm using 030, but I've got 025, and I've got different thicknesses of wire. And one other tip, you don't need 030. I did a whole video about this. Most people all run out by 030, but you're not doing a lot of structural welding. For most people, like in the shop, home, and all that, you can get by with 025, very easily. But anyway, here's the roller, okay? And this is what I call like a roller clamp. Now, if I come down with this, this comes up, okay? Now, you'll see where the wire comes across right here. So once I put that spool on, I bring my wire through this little hole over here, comes out this hole, and it comes right over the top of these rollers. And it's over the one that has the groove in it for this particular wire. Now, most of your MIG welders are going to be like that. Then this thing shuts down, and I bring up, it's a little, it's a knob, okay, and it adds tension. I can twist it like this. It will add tension down on top of this roller. That tension on top of the wire, when you hit that trigger on your MIG gun, causes the roller to spin and the wire to feed through the hose, and it comes out your tip. Here's a word of caution. You don't have to over tighten this. Leave the thing open, put your wire through, tighten it a little bit, hit the trigger. As if it just spins and the wire's not coming out, you don't have enough tension on it. Give it some more tension, another half a turn. I do about a half a turn at a time. Once the wire is actually feeding through without any interruption or any intermittent spinning, you're fine. But you don't need to sit here and tighten this down or like you would with a wrench. So don't do that. I see people do that all the time. You're going to wear this stuff out fast. You'll criticize the machine. It's really not the machine. It was you. Okay, now here's a couple other small tips. Here's the MIG gun. Here's the shield. And there's the tip. I just took the shield off. Mine just slides off real easily. Let me see, I get this in focus here. Mine comes off real easily. Here's the tip. This screws and unscrews. And you can see here, if I tilt it, it's clean. It's got a little darkness to it, but it's still very clean. When this becomes damaged, these are cheap. You can buy them in boxes of 10s and 20s and what have you, as long as you get the correct size for the wire that you're using. So I've got tips for 025, I've got tips for 030. So I put a new tip on here occasionally when I notice this is getting damaged. Now somebody said, can you use a piece of sandpaper and knock it off? You probably could, you could probably get away with it, but these are cheap, they're really fast to put on. Okay, this shroud, I keep it clean, okay? And I take a look at both my tip and I take a look at the shroud prior to any welding project. Now, out at Harbor Freight, I call them MIG pliers. You can call them whatever you want. They're kind of inexpensive. I think it's about $6, something like that. And up here on the top, it's got a little bit of like a corrugation to it, a little bit of roughness here on the steel on both the bottom and the top. I just take this, like this, I twist it around a couple of times like this, and boom, it's clean of any slag or anything that's in there. Okay, so at that point, I can turn around, I got a good tip on here, I know that, I can put my shield back on. I know that my gun, the tip, they're ready to go. So, okay, now there's one other tip, and you don't have to go out and buy this, okay? This stuff right here, I get at my welding supply store. There's a lady I work with. Her husband manages it. I got a hell of a discount just to try the product. It's Radner Anti-Splatter. And it's a nozzle shielding thing. You can squirt a little bit around the nozzle, you know, before you start welding, and it keeps slag from sticking to it and so forth. Now, the other thing I use this for, which, you know, you want to be careful about doing it, but when I have welding projects, you know, you get those little splatters all over. You got to go in and clean up. I squirt some of this on there because I wipe everything down with acetone anyway, and I use primer, and then I use whatever color I'm going to use. But this also keeps it from sticking, okay? So it's kind of handy. I've had the same can for almost 2 years. I mean, I don't use it all the time, but on certain projects I use it and it comes in handy, and you can buy it online or anywhere else that you want. So that's another quick tip. I did a video a while back, I'm going to show you this, where I didn't clean. This isn't even weld prepped really. I just cut a couple pieces of steel with my 4.5-inch angle grinder with a cutoff blade, and I went ahead and welded. And you can see up here where the weld was so crummy, I stopped almost immediately, okay? Why? Because I didn't go through the steps that I told you, and I had a bad tip on there, and the tip on it was filled with anti-splatter. So what I did is I went ahead and I cleaned it up, and I have a video, you can go back and look, and then I turned around and I did it again. And now the weld flowed, I mean, perfectly. It was nice. I mean, there's a big difference just by using those simple tips. So I hope this helped you, okay? These are just quick tips of the day and whatever you're doing. But if you buy a used MIG welder, I mean, take somebody with you that knows what they're doing, that's used MIG welders before, or is more familiar with it than you if you're not, and have the machine demoed right there on the spot before you even think about buying it, especially if you're buying something off Craigslist or something like that. If you're buying it brand new, you're going to get a warranty and everything else with it, and you should be fine. Plenty of good welders out there. I've done lots of videos on welding, and so I'm going to go over to questions and answers real quick, and then I'm going to wrap this up. So give me just a sec to take a look. Okay, so one of the questions I got is how often do I bend metal, and what do I use to bend it besides just a vise or an anvil? Well, an anvil's real good. I mean, you got the hardy holes, and I mean, and you got things on there that, I mean, you can bend around the horn, and yeah, all that, I get it. Okay, one of the things that I did is I took some scrap steel right here. Let's see. I took this piece of scrap right here, this base plate. Okay, then I turned around and I welded this on the bottom. It's just a piece of square tube steel right in the middle. And this is where my vise would hold it, and it would hold it like this. Then I took some pipe, just black pipe from out at Home Depot, Lowe's, wherever it was, and I welded them on there in this configuration. Now you don't have to. You can weld it in a lot of different, I could have welded one over here, here. You know, it's whatever project you're doing, and I have them like about 4 of these. But this was fast, easy, and next to nothing to do. Then when I set my piece of steel in here, or if I heat something up, And if it's cold rolled, I don't have to heat it because I'm not using anything that thick most of the time anyway. But horseshoes or whatever, I can put them in here like this. I can grab it over here and I can easily make a bend. Now you can repeat the bend by marking it and doing different things, but this has come in real handy. Also, this hole on the top, if I have a piece of thin sheet metal, like when I make these hot dog cookers right here. Okay, so his hat right up here, you can see it's a little bit concave. Well, I didn't heat it up and bend it. I actually just put it on top. I put it on top right here, and I held it with a pair of pliers, ball peen hammer, and I hit it where the hole is, and I was able just to form it however I wanted to. So, you know, you can think of lots of different ways to use something like this. Like I said, it's very cheap and inexpensive to do. I've done a lot of videos on how to make different pieces of steel used in weld bending, metal bending, for welding. So you can go back through my playlist, take a search. That'll give you a lot of information. It's very simple to make these things. You just need to see how somebody else did it like me, and then, you know, you can use what I do as a boilerplate and tweak it to your own liking. So those are my thoughts on this stuff, and I keep a big square box, you know, up on my workbench where I keep lots of small cutoffs in there. And somebody was over the other day and said, you know, why do you bother? Just throw them in the trash. Well, I use it for practicing. I mean, sometimes I'll grab a couple pieces of steel and I'll think, I wonder if I could do a certain thing with it, or I wonder if I could bend this like this. And rather than use the steel I'm going to use on the project, I grab a piece of scrap and I use it. And when I've kind of abused it enough, yeah, I throw it out. Okay, so that's, I hope that answers your question. Let me take a look, see if there's anything else. Okay, one of the other questions is, I saw some barbecues and some things that I made, and where do I get my hinges? Aren't they expensive? No, they're not. I go out to the steel supply yard. I don't buy these from Home Depot or Lowe's. They're just steel hinges. So these hinges are 3.5 by about 1.5 inches wide on each, you know, flange. So what do they cost me? They cost me $1 a piece, because as I go out there, they're in a great big bend. There's a whole bunch of them. So that's what I do. That's where I get them. That's where I think that they're the cheapest. Yes, they come in different sizes. I mean, here's a smaller one. It was probably less than $1. I don't remember. But, you know, you can buy those. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, another question. Where do you get your MIG tips from? Okay, I buy them in packs of 10. You get them in different sizes. And so the two most common size wires that I use are like 030, and I use, like I said, I mean the 0.25. I mean, it's up to you. It's whatever you think you want to use. Just look at the wire, buy yourself a package of tips. When I'm out at the welding store, I mean, the other thing that I buy, they're like 10 cents a piece, are these marking sticks for marking metal. It's just chalk, basically. They break easily. I don't care. I just throw them all in here, all the little bits and pieces. But they also sell markers out there that you can buy, and they're going to cost you a little bit more, and I keep down the cost of things as much as I can. It's just going to do the same thing. It's going to make a mark for cutting or welding. What do I care about buying a paint pen? When I had my plasma cutter, I don't have it anymore, I sold it, I'll upgrade eventually, but paint pens came in real handy. They were very, very nice when you're, especially when you're doing plasma cutting over chalk, which, you know, you move it around, the line disappears, all that. So those are just quick thoughts. I'm the Home Handyman. I hope you folks click subscribe. I hope you keep following me. If you've got some tips that you do in your MIG welding or just general welding, drop them in the comment below. If I didn't teach you anything new, at least I gave you something to think about next time you're out in the garage, about a little quick checklist in your mind to go through before you start welding. You folks have a great day. Again, click subscribe. Follow me. I appreciate everything. Thank you folks very much. Have a good day. Bye-bye.